In 1929, in the segregated South of the United States, a child was born who would one day challenge injustice, fight for equality, and inspire millions across the world. On January 15, in Atlanta, Georgia, Martin Luther King Jr. entered the world. He was born into a society divided by race, where African Americans faced harsh segregation, were denied basic rights, and were forced to live under oppressive Jim Crow laws. From the very beginning, King's life was shaped by both struggle and hope. His father, Martin Luther King Sr., was a Baptist minister and a respected leader in Atlanta's African American community. His mother, Alberta Williams King, was a schoolteacher who nurtured her children with love, faith, and the belief that education and character were the true measures of a person. She encouraged young Martin to read, to ask questions, and to imagine a better world. Growing up, Martin was thoughtful, quiet, and curious. He attended segregated schools, and from an early age, he witnessed the injustice of racism around him. African Americans were barred from certain areas, treated as second-class citizens, and denied opportunities that were freely given to white Americans. Yet, even in these difficult circumstances, Martin excelled academically and spiritually. Books became his sanctuary. He devoured the Bible, stories of great leaders, history, and works that introduced him to the ideas of justice, morality, and courage. He was not just learning facts, he was learning how the world worked, why inequality existed, and what could be done to change it. These lessons planted the seeds of a lifelong commitment to justice, equality, and nonviolence. King grew up in a home where faith and perseverance were central. His parents taught him that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act in spite of fear. Even as a child, he could sense the unfairness around him. He saw neighbors humiliated, friends denied opportunities, and families struggling under the weight of unjust laws. These early experiences left a deep mark on young Martin and fueled his desire to fight for change. By the time he reached his teenage years, Martin was already a gifted speaker. He could captivate his peers with words full of hope, reason, and humor. At just 15, he skipped high school entirely and entered Morehouse College, a historically black institution in Atlanta. There, he studied sociology, philosophy, and theology, learning not just to understand the world, but to imagine ways to improve it. At Morehouse, Martin began to see the connection between faith, morality, and social justice. He learned that change was possible, but it required courage, patience, and the willingness to face opposition without using violence. These lessons shaped the foundation of his philosophy, nonviolence as a powerful tool to confront injustice. After Morehouse, Martin continued his studies at Crozer Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania, earning a Bachelor of Divinity degree. Later, he earned a Ph.D. in systematic theology from Boston University. These years of study sharpened both his intellect and his moral vision. He began to understand deeply that the fight for civil rights would not be easy, but it was necessary for the soul of the nation. In the 1950s, the United States was deeply segregated. African Americans could not eat in the same restaurants as white people, use the same public bathrooms, or attend the same schools. Voting rights were restricted through discriminatory laws. Violence and intimidation were common for those who spoke out against injustice. This was the world Martin King was entering as a young minister. One day, a courageous act sparked a movement that would change the nation. Rosa Parks, a black woman in Montgomery, Alabama, refused to give up her bus seat to a white passenger. She was arrested, but her act of defiance inspired the Montgomery bus boycott. The African American community united to protest peacefully by walking, carpooling, and refusing to use the buses. Martin Luther King Jr., then a young pastor, was chosen to lead the boycott. He quickly emerged as a powerful voice of reason and justice. For more than a year, the boycott continued. People faced arrests, threats, and violence, but King remained committed to nonviolence. His leadership, eloquence, and moral courage helped bring a victory. The Supreme Court ruled that segregation on public buses was unconstitutional. The success of the Montgomery bus boycott made King a national figure. But he understood that the struggle for civil rights was far from over. Segregation was still widespread. Discrimination persisted in schools, jobs, and public facilities. King knew that changing laws alone was not enough. Hearts and minds had to change as well. Throughout the late 1950s and early 1960s, King traveled across the South, speaking in churches, schools, and public meetings. He taught people that nonviolent protest, inspired by love and courage, could dismantle centuries of injustice. He encouraged ordinary citizens to stand up, to march, to boycott, and to demand their rights peacefully. In 1963, King helped organize the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. More than 250,000 people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial. There, he delivered one of the most famous speeches in history. "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." The speech was simple yet powerful, spoken with clarity, humility, and moral authority. Millions listened, and his words became a symbol of hope, justice, and equality. The March on Washington helped pressure Congress to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964, outlawing racial segregation in schools, employment, and public spaces. King's vision was not limited to race alone. He believed in economic justice, peace, and human dignity for all. He worked to end poverty, to improve education, and to challenge the growing conflict in Vietnam. His speeches, letters, and marches consistently called on people to act with courage, morality, and nonviolence. Despite his achievements, King faced constant danger. He was arrested dozens of times, his home and churches were bombed, and threats followed him wherever he went. Yet he never wavered. His philosophy was clear: hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Only nonviolence could create true and lasting change. In 1964, Martin Luther King Jr. was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his work to end racial segregation and to promote justice through peaceful means. He became the youngest person to receive this honor at the time. But he remained humble, always emphasizing that the movement was larger than any one person. King continued to lead marches, protests, and campaigns across the country. In 1965, he helped organize the Selma to Montgomery marches to demand voting rights for African Americans. Marchers were met with violence from police, but King's leadership and courage drew national attention. These efforts contributed to the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, ensuring that all citizens could vote without discrimination. Even in the face of violence and threats, King remained committed to justice. He believed that progress was possible, but it required courage, sacrifice, and the willingness to act in the name of truth. His speeches were filled with wisdom, hope, and a deep sense of moral responsibility. King's influence extended beyond the United States. His vision of equality, nonviolence, and human dignity inspired movements around the world, from anti-apartheid campaigns in South Africa to civil rights struggles in Europe and Asia. People learned that change could be achieved without hatred, and that ordinary citizens could make a difference when guided by conscience and courage. On April 4, 1968, tragedy struck. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated while standing on the balcony of his hotel room in Memphis, Tennessee. His death sent shockwaves across the United States and the world. Millions mourned the loss of a leader, a moral voice, and a symbol of hope. Yet even in death, his legacy endured. Laws changed. Communities healed. And millions of people continued to fight for the principles he stood for. Martin Luther King Jr.'s life teaches us that one person, guided by courage, faith, and the belief in justice, can transform a nation. From a child in segregated Atlanta to the leader of the civil rights movement, King showed that nonviolence, love, and perseverance are the keys to lasting change. His dream was not just for African Americans, but for all people, a world where equality, freedom, and dignity are guaranteed to everyone. Today, his words and vision continue to inspire generations around the world. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Martin Luther King Jr. reminds us that even in the darkest times, hope, courage, and moral conviction can change history. From a young boy in Atlanta to the most powerful voice for justice in the 20th century, Martin Luther King Jr.'s story teaches us that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things when guided by purpose, courage, and compassion. His life remains a beacon of hope, showing that the fight for justice, equality, and human dignity is never in vain. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with others who love history. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories of leaders, legends, and the journeys that shaped our world.